I'm man enough to admit it. I owe the Chinese manufacturer ZX Moto an apology. I learned about this new motorcycle brand from China a few months ago, and if I'm being honest, I was a little judgy and a little harsh.
今天给大家介绍这个视频，绝对颠覆你的认知。谁能想到，一位拥有数百万粉丝的美国顶级摩托车网红，竟然公开向一位中国机车博主认错？曾经不被看好的中国机车，如今不仅征服了海外市场，更让这位美国网红感叹：世界太需要这种草根精神了。从质疑到佩服，从看扁到道歉，这场跨越中美机车圈的反转，远比想象中更加震撼。
Just as we have decided to stop talking about CF Moto, a new Chinese motorcycle company has decided to engage in some crazy fuckery.
Because they appeared seemingly from nowhere, practically overnight, promising to build performance machines that not only rivaled existing Chinese models, but famed sport bikes from the best manufacturers around the world. With the preconceived notions about Chinese motorcycles, an industry that is neutering bikes for emissions compliances or approachability, and an influx of AI videos and fake news, I kind of just assumed ZX Moto had to be some sort of farce. How could a company that didn't even exist 2 years ago build the most powerful production supersport on Earth? It just didn't make any sense. It didn't compute. Well, less than 6 months later, I have been proved completely wrong. ZX Moto, with the founder Zhang Shui at the helm, are the current dark horse in world supersport, coming out of nowhere and beating giants like Ducati, Yamaha, and Kawasaki on the world stage. In the wake of these victories, Zhang Shui's story is becoming more well known in the Western world. Not only is this a fascinating underdog story, I think it's a symbol of hope for motorsports. A company built solely for the love of the game, the thrill of the win, not to satisfy shareholders or meet sales goals. In a world where every aspect of our lives, including motorcycles, are governed by corporate overlords, I'm really excited about what ZX Moto represents. Let me tell you why. ZX Moto is fascinating not just because of their motorcycles, but because of the guy behind the company. This isn't some faceless mega corporation with 14 vice presidents and a marketing department trying to leverage their racing program to turn around and sell value-driven commuter bikes. The founder, Zhang Shui, is pretty much the opposite of that. He grew up in rural China and dropped out of school at 14 years old to become a motorcycle mechanic. Not because he had some grand entrepreneurial master plan, but just because he was obsessed with motorcycles. He had racing aspirations himself, specifically around enduro and other off-road disciplines, but like a lot of people born without money or racing connections, the racing dream never materialized, at least with Zhang Shui in the saddle. And we see this on every level of motorcycle racing. To have a chance of racing professionally, you either need to be genetically gifted, born into a motorsports family, or have the means, access, and time to dedicate every moment of your life starting from age 3. Well, I guess a combination of all of those would be good too. And Zhang Shui, as a poor kid from rural China, was not exactly Valentino Rossi. He just wanted to build his life around motorcycles in one way or another. And I think that's part of why this story resonates so hard, because Zhang Shui is not approaching motorcycles like an executive. He's approaching them more like an enthusiast. He's the sort of guy who's going to spend hours in the garage after a race personally rebuilding an engine or finding new ways to shave a few hundred grams of weight. He's been fueled by not just passion and a desire to win, but by a personal responsibility to eschew the expectations of what a Chinese motorcycle is meant to be. And that's why I think it's cool that he has the Chinese flag right there on the front of the bike. Because let's be honest, before CF Moto hit the scene, Chinese motorcycles were seen as cheap, small displacement commuters for dense Asian cities, or the bike-in-a-box specials that broke boys would order on Amazon because they couldn't afford a GSX-R 250, and they were usually seen as highly derivative products that would just flagrantly get people's IP and just copy it.
Why does it looks like a Ninja 300. Is this a Ninja 300 fairing?
Zhang Shui has been determined to blow the lid off of those stereotypes and prove that motorcycles from China could hold against other big legacy brands. And in just 2 years since its founding, ZX Moto did just that. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. During the early 2000s, Shui started working for various motorcycle companies throughout China. He learned about manufacturing, supply chains, engineering, racing support, and distribution. As while he was cutting his teeth in the industry, getting hands-on experience, he was secretly making plans to do his own thing, to start a company where he could put performance and passion first. While Zhang Shui wasn't the only one trying to change the expectations of Chinese motorcycles, his approach was wholly unique. You have companies like CF Moto who compete globally through brand partnerships and essentially bought their way into credibility. But Shui's approach was way more raw. It was grassroots, it was DIY. He wasn't trying to build motorcycles that looked cool for Instagram or Gen Z brain rot squids. He wasn't trying to earn the respect of it by buying it from KTM. And he wasn't trying to earn respect by just purchasing the bikes from KTM and slapping a new, Chinese brand on top of them. He wanted to truly compete with engineering, performance, and by winning races. Winning is a universal language that has the power to cut through prejudice, nationalism, and even the most cringe boomer YouTube comments. And before Zhang Shui was winning on the World Supersport circuit, he was competing in the world's toughest desert race, the Dakar. Before ZX Moto ever existed, the founder Zhang Shui first made waves with another company called Kove. If you're unfamiliar with Kove, you must not be involved in the ADV bike universe. They're the first Chinese motorcycle brand that forced enthusiasts to go, wait a second, these guys might actually be serious. Because unlike companies like CF Moto, they're not focusing on trendy styling, cheap pricing, or flashy tech packages. Kove's entire brand is based on serious off-road performance, not kind of like a pretty good for the price performance, but just real deal performance. And they've been catching the eye of a lot of riders, which actually means something when you know how hard these off-road and ADV guys are to please. There's nowhere better to prove the capabilities of your off-road motorcycle than the Dakar Rally. Kove was founded in 2017, and in 2023, after just 6 years of existence, they just said, yeah, let's compete in the most brutal motorsports event on the planet. Thousands of miles of sand, rocks, endless desert heat, and psychological torment. Factory teams with limitless budgets still fail at this all the time. Riders with decades of experience fail. The Dakar has a mythical reputation because even just finishing this event is considered an accomplishment. So, Kove, a tiny Chinese company that nobody in the West ever even knew existed, comes out to compete. They have nowhere near the budget, infrastructure, or experience of KTM or Honda, yet they not only entered the Dakar, they finished it. In 2023, 3 Koves entered and all 3 finished. You can fake a lot of things in motorcycling. You can create marketing campaigns, you can woo content creators with loaner bikes and press events, but you can't fake the Dakar. And that's why motorcycles from Kove or ZX Moto are way more interesting than those from CF Moto in my opinion. Because CF Moto is all about marketing, aesthetics, building brands that are laser focused on the preferences and spending power of a very specific type of rider. But Kove and ZX Moto are something else completely different. They're built by racers and rally riding lunatics. They build bikes that are highly specialized and probably at the end of the day, bad for business. But they're too obsessed with the results to care. If you even look at a Kove side by side with a Japanese adventure bike, you can just see that it's a more raw, more hard-edged, and more specialized bike than a glorified commuter bike described as having an adventurous spirit. So less than a decade into Kove's run, the founder Zhang Shui started to run into creative differences internally, which I can kind of understand. Kove's getting attention and recognition, and then they want to lock in and focus on the rinse and repeat business model, while Shui was wanting to push further and harder into the extreme. He seems like a guy who refuses to do things the easy way. So he left Kove, the company he founded, to start ZX Moto. And if you thought Kove's quick ascension was hard to believe, ZX Moto's is even crazier. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, I have a pretty sweet life here on YouTube being Yami Noob, but my least favorite part about this whole thing is letting my giveaway bikes go. I have enjoyed this Aprilia 210 V4 factory so much. I have really loved riding this bike, but it's time for me to say goodbye because this Friday is the last chance you have to get entered to win. That means you gotta head over to yaminoob.co, link down below, pick up a hat, a t-shirt, hoodie, anything you need. Every dollar you spend will be an entry to win, subject to our multiplier, and you'll get entered to win this motorcycle. But if you become a member, you'll get your entries locked in for for this bike and all of our future giveaway bikes as well. The next one we're doing after this bike is a Panigale V4, so you're not going to want to miss that one. Head to the website, get entered to win, don't miss it. ZX Moto was founded in 2024, just 2 years ago. They're not a legacy manufacturer with decades of racing pedigree. They're not a relatively new player with state funding or a white label rebrand of an existing product. This company came out of thin air when Zhang Shui decided he wanted to build the most extreme super sport on earth. I mean, this guy's just the main character, right? This is crazy. And naturally, everyone, including myself, when we saw the EICMA announcement, said, okay, sure, we'll believe it when we see it. I mean, you can't blame me, right? Look at the entire motorcycle industry right now. Even the biggest manufacturers are struggling to build truly exciting or purposeful sport bikes anymore. We're told it's basically impossible. Ducati still carries that torch, but so many other companies know flagship adventure bikes and low-cost beginner bikes are where the money's at. Even Yamaha's R9, a symbol of the next-gen supersport, is less racy than the former R6 ever was. Because that's what people want. Or so they say. Cross-platforming is where the money's at, and that's what meets emission standards. It's this balancing act of Euro 5+, value-driven pricing, electronics, reliability, and low R&D cost. It's a story we've told on this channel dozens of times. Most new bikes are some boardroom-approved compromise. Then, ZX Moto does a presentation at EICMA talking about building motorcycles with unprecedented power-to-weight ratios and claiming the Chinese national anthem is going to play at the end of World Supersport races. It seemed highly unbelievable. It didn't help that this presentation also felt very DIY, but it turns out that DIY mentality and removal of corporate marketing fluff is a deliberate part of ZX Moto's secret sauce. Zhang Shui is spending money where it counts, R&D. Everything else he can do himself, he does. The marketing presentations, the social media, the customer support. There are videos of him literally standing trackside holding the umbrellas for riders while the factory Ducati teams have entire hospitality crews tending to the needs of their riders. Shui is operating like a grassroots club racing team while also simultaneously trying to build the bikes himself. He's not just hot rodding an R6 following the same plug-and-play recipe that every Supersport Club racing team has been for the last 15 years. He's building the bikes from scratch and testing their mettle real-time on the world stage. The bike they're racing in World Supersport is the ZX Moto 820RR. And while bikes like the R9 are making just 117 horsepower, the 820RR claims 133 ponies and 59 foot-pounds of torque. The website also lists an 820RR version that pumps power out to 143 ponies and cuts the curb weight to just 410 pounds. That's not impressive in the sense of like, wow, this Chinese bike has an LED startup sequence. It's impressive like, how is he managing to make power on production bikes that literally no other company in the same segment can touch? Especially a company that spawned like 5 minutes ago. That's what made the whole thing feel suspicious at first. It's too good to be true. The motorcycle industry is full of vaporware promises and companies trying to create hype with impossible claims. How many like crazy hubless electric bikes have we seen that they're like, oh, we're gonna raise $100 million and go sell all these bikes? I mean, come on, it's the world we live in, especially now that AI-generated slop content has made everyone suspicious of anything new or outside of the ordinary. I mean, I'm sure you've seen stuff like this, right? Like CF Moto's new 300 horsepower rotary turbo engine will cause epic problems for the big four. And they're like 35 minutes long and they have 300 views. So it's a little unbelievable. So right when all those ZX Moto videos came out and these crazy claims, we all just kind of chuckled and rolled our eyes. And then they started racing. And they didn't just start racing, but they started winning. The 2025 World Supersport Championship is when things stopped becoming theoretical, because it's one thing to make insane claims on the stage at EICMA, and it's another thing entirely to line up against Panigale V2s, R9s, and ZX6Rs, and then proceed to actually beat them in professional level racing. As of late May 2026, ZX Moto has won 5 World Supersport races with the 820RR at the hands of Valentin Debise, and they are currently in 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship and 2nd place in the Riders' Championship. Now, those numbers may change. They're literally racing this weekend as I'm recording this video, so cut me a little bit of slack. They're trailing former Moto3 world champion Albert Arenas, who's riding the Yamaha R9. It's actually his first year in the World Supersport Championship after rolling around in the Grand Prix paddock for several years. And that is practically unfathomable that they find themselves in this position. ZX Moto did not exist just a few years ago, and their bikes have now beaten Ducati and Yamaha 5 times already. Okay, now, before we start jumping up and down and getting super excited, we need to discuss the balance of power rules in World Supersport, because this is a crucial part in the video. The FIM and Dorna, I guess they're Liberty Media now, utilize something called the balance of power algorithm to equalize the performance of this very diverse class of motorcycle racing. Because in the past, Supersport racing was just 600cc bikes with inline 4s. But today you have big twins, triples, inline 4s, they all have different displacements, and honestly, it's a bit chaotic. So they use things like RPM limits, torque limiting maps, air restrictors, and minimum weights to make sure that no one bike is vastly over the performance ceiling that's been set. Otherwise, the racing would be super boring to watch. Now, this algorithm is monitored and recalculated based on race results, lap times, speed traps, and data collected over the rounds. So, since ZX Moto is brand new to the paddock, it's possible that their balance of power has not been configured correctly and they are a bit too fast. But this is just my own personal take based on the race wins that I saw DeBeest take. It seems just like good old-fashioned racecraft and a solid bike underneath them. And it's important to say that while the 820RR is technologically impressive, it does not tell the whole story. It's the culture and energy of the team. It doesn't feel like a corporate racing outfit. It feels like a ragtag group of enthusiasts. And that's actually what attracted their current rider Valentin DeBeest to the team in the first place. He saw Zhang Shui at racing events acting like you'd never expect a founding owner to behave, yelling, jumping around, truly fired up by what was happening during the race. It's such a strong juxtaposition to the ultra-sanitized corporate energy of modern motorsports. Media-trained PR statements, flashy high-end sponsor obligations, the general F1ification of motorsports that I think some of us are kind of tired of seeing in MotoGP, for example. ZX Moto feels old school, like the kind of racing that existed before motorsports became luxury lifestyle content for finance bros and bored housewives. Valentin DeBeest is another reason why this story is so distinct and unique. DeBeest is 34 years old. In motorcycle racing years, that's practically retirement age, which makes me kind of sad because that's just about how old I am. Modern racing programs are obsessed with youth, and DeBeest wasn't much of a shiny new object that factory teams love building a program around. But then ZX Moto came around with the crazy vision that they had and brought DeBeest in. And if a racer backs a company, that says a lot. They risk their lives for a living, and they know when a company is just making noise for attention. DeBeest clearly saw something real in Zhang Shui. The passion is just impossible to ignore. Imagine being a factory team rider and the team owner is not hiding in some VIP booth somewhere drinking espresso with sponsors. He's standing there holding umbrellas, wrenching on bikes, and acting like the entire thing is life or death. That's the type of thing that brought people into racing in the first place. These wins are not just important for ZX Moto, they're important for the perception of Chinese motorcycles as a whole. I mean, beating some of the best sport bikes currently in production on the world stage is pretty crazy. Racing has always been the ultimate validation tool and the North Star for a company. That's how Ducati became Ducati. That's how Honda became the biggest motorcycle manufacturer on earth. Winning changes minds faster than any marketing campaign or a content creator's 40 to 80 poll ever will. And maybe that's why ZX Moto feels so refreshing, and it's why I'm very happy to make this video pretty much formally apologizing to ZX Moto and Zhang Shui. I mischaracterized them and the company, and they have completely blown my expectations out of the water. And honestly, we need more people like Zhang Shui in the world. Someone with a crazy dream, someone who's out there willing to do stuff that hasn't been done before. People who are willing to chase their dreams. And they're refreshing not because they're Chinese, not because they're winning, but because they feel human. In an era where motorcycles are increasingly designed by committees, optimized for quarterly growth, and marketed like tech products, Zhang Shui built a company that feels fueled entirely by obsession, by passion, by the simple desire to go racing and to just win. Whether ZX Moto becomes the next Ducati or just flames out spectacularly in the next 5 years, it doesn't even matter at this point. The fact that they made it this far is already one of the coolest stories in modern motorcycling. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like there's still a bunch of room in motorsports for enthusiasts with a dream and something to prove. We're definitely going to keep an eye on this company in the future. This is one of the most exciting Chinese manufacturers on the market today. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I'll catch you in the next one. And to Zhang Shui, you're the main character, dude. Good luck.
看完这个视频，我最大的感受只有4个字：时代变了。过去很长一段时间，全球摩托车市场几乎被欧美和日本品牌牢牢占据，中国制造更多扮演追随者的角色。但短短10几年，中国机车产业却完成了一次惊人的逆袭。根据行业数据，中国已经连续多年成为全球最大的摩托车生产国和出口国，产品远销上百个国家和地区。而春风动力等国产品牌甚至开始与 KTM 这样的国际巨头展开深度合作。更让我感触的是，这位美国网红真正佩服的并不是某一辆车，而是张雪身上那种从普通人一步步走出来的草根精神。曾经被轻视、被质疑，如今却用实力赢得尊重，这种反差其实也像极了中国制造这些年的发展轨迹。很多人还停留在过去的印象里，但现实已经悄悄发生改变。当越来越多外国人开始重新认识中国品牌的时候，我们是不是也应该重新认识自己？或许真正让人肃然起敬的，从来不是一句口号，而是默默坚持之后，用实力让世界主动改变看法。